Howdy.
afternoon. Hello, everyone. I am alternate juror or AJ. We have Mo down here joining us, and Gabby's up there in
Yes.
the. She's not talking.
She's our silent backer.
She's our silent person. We are going to chat about Delphi and what is Gabby, you want down below? I don't know how to put you down there. Remove from stage. There you go. Sorry. We are
Oh,
going
no, that's
to have a chat about Delphi today. So, Mo has done a lot of research and followed this for a very long time. I followed it until I realized it was not going to go well. And then I stopped, but I have picked it back up since the trial started. And so I asked Mo if she would come on and have a chat. She can give a lot of background, so I'm going to let her do a lot of that. And
so
so
I
you
I
pick it up
think
whenever,
it's
Mo.
kind of an interesting thing to kind of go through what drew us to the case since we're both, I mean, relatively local. I live about an hour and a half away from Delphi, uh, sl shorter if you speed, but you didn't ask me.
I didn't hear anything.
So really to go back to that February 13th, I mean, we kind of knew that the girls were missing. I think everyone assumed that maybe they had tried to walk home or do something like that. And then the next day, when it was announced that they had passed away, that was basically all we learned. We had this really interesting press release or press conference where the sheriff bloviated on about the shack and, you're hiding in plain sight and we're going to catch you. And I thought with the introduction of, the state police, we had the FBI, we had the local police. I thought, okay, like, okay, they were taken off the trail, they were shot or something because I didn't know until I read the Franks motion how these girls passed away. I legitimately thought that they were shot because that's the amount of information that just didn't get out. Everything, we got one sketch that looks exactly like someone who has a criminal past for, being kind of gross with children that turned out to not be the person. We've got a lot of ancillary characters that we don't know why they were, considered marked off or, they weren't suspects. And then all of a sudden, I mean, we get 2 years into it, I believe we get a different sketch of a fresh-faced young guy,
Yes.
and he's the one, and so for a while, for several years, all we had was down the hill,
Hmm.
down the hill, and this weird sort of stop motion photo thing. When they released the new sketch with the younger man, then we got guys down the hill. Like, we're supposed to effing crack the case like Nancy Drew and the Scooby Gang just needed guys, and they were gonna get it
Yeah.
all together.
Yep.
Now, the problem with this is that if you are demanding help from the public, but this is all you give us, there's not really much that we can do. I mean, again, we didn't I'll speak for myself, I didn't dig in, at that point, I was just more of a mom, who kind of casually watched trials, but I
Me too.
didn't dig in, so I didn't know that the girls had their were posed, one was nude, I mean, they were very tight-lipped, and you kind of got this sinking feeling every time, an anniversary would pass that things weren't going well. They weren't quite understanding or getting it. And then, the FBI's been kicked off. Well, we didn't get any explanation for why that was, why they didn't want the research or resources that the FBI could give them. And then we were, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, out of the blue, the case was cracked. And I
Hmm.
think everyone kind of breathed a sigh of relief, like, "We've got him. This is great, awesome." And I just started like, I was a baby screamer. I just started so I was waiting for that probable cause affidavit, and I believe I did or need to do because right then was when the Letitia Stalk case was going on. So you have the probable cause affidavit from Letitia Stalk, which is full of actual information that goes with the case. And then I compared it to what we got with Richard Allen, and I was like, what do we have here? We have a bullet that was found 3 days after the site was cleared for the public cleared for public use. We don't really have why, they decided to go back. The reasoning for everything has been hidden from us. And the problem with the state, if they don't want conspiracy theories, if they don't want this or that, then there's a level of needing to be able to express to the public why you made certain decisions, why you did this instead of that, why you took the FBI off, why the sketch suddenly changed. We were never told, we were just given this other sketch. And I don't know that, the lawyers coming in, it's not like we jumped on a bandwagon or this is a cool, new case. We've been following this case, I mean, casually or not so casually since it happened, because it is every parent's worst nightmare.
Right.
I mean, to send your kids out to a town where everyone, does little, hand doot when you do that. I mean, it is 1,200 people. It's the county seat, but it's tiny. I've been there. The, prison or the jail is, right across the street from the courtroom, and then the CVS is about 2 minutes walk right there. So it does beg incredulity that all of these task force members, all of these locals, every one of us who have heard, the ad nauseum guys down the hill, no one said, "Hey, I know it's a little off, but that guy that does the tech stuff at the CVS, doesn't he look like Bridge?" Because
Yeah.
I would be shameless. You have no idea. I'd be going up to a recorder like random dudes, like, "Say down the hill."
Yes.
Like, talking to this talk boy,
Yes.
or, like, taking a photo, like, sketch and, like, going like this.
Yeah.
So, it is weird. We were just talking about this behind or backstage, but had this case happened in, say, the late '80s, early '90s, I truly believe that the police would have gone with the, cult angle. I mean, of all the times that it looks like a cult or they say it's a cult and it's not, and then we have something that definitely looks deliberate and completely out of touch with what any normal criminal would do. This was highly organized. And it also begs belief, and I know I'm not a doctorologist or anything like this, but I had a hard time reconciling that this would be a first initial crime. It's
Absolutely.
such a high risk area. You I will tell you on the trail, sounds scary. It does. You never know when people are gonna be walking up, down. I mean, it just does not seem possible that a man can do this, a short, small man, it especially now that they've added this added layer of the van. So you're telling me he got scared by the van to not SA them, but he still decided to do this ritual, like so
It doesn't make sense.
yeah, it doesn't make sense, and I'm in no way trying to body shame, but because I just got out of the 200 club, I'm not gonna lie, okay? But Abby was a bigger girl.
Libby.
For one person I'm sorry, Libby. Yes, Libby was a larger girl, and for someone who is 5'4" and had a heart attack, wasn't, admittedly wasn't in the best shape, for him to deadlift her while keeping her at a sloped angle so that the blood would run up, it just doesn't read that way. Not it doesn't. And this is the problem that, a lot of people are having with this. It just does there's something wrong, and you might not be able to put your finger on it. You might not be able to eloquently, state it, but him going into solitary confinement for 13 months when a lot of other, standard operating procedures would be, I think you get 60 days, or you're not supposed to be in there very long.
I think it's 90. It's I've heard my daughter said 90. I thought somebody else said I heard 30, but it could be 60. I don't know. It's somewhere in that time frame of you have to reevaluate them,
yeah,
and they
and
never
it's
did.
and the more that, you know, look, if the state could prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it's Richard Allen, I think that every single person who has followed this case wants these girls to find peace. If you can, if you're local, I would suggest going to Delphi, going on the Monon Trail or in the High Bridge. It is shockingly was a very emotional thing for me, um, just seeing where they had last been. I didn't go to the particular area where they passed. It is on private land. I don't feel like getting shot, those kind of things. Not to mention I'm not really graceful on uneven ground, so
I'd be with you. I'd be like
but
rolling down the hill.
this is a tragedy for all the families. And if anything, I think this case has really brought home that regardless of innocence or guilt, the defendant's family are victims in this as well. And I think
100%.
that's something that we tend to forget, but having to listen to how Kathy, Richard Allen's wife, is handling some of this, I know she will not be in the courtroom today. I don't believe she was in Sunday, because she talked to Richard Allen and did not want to see him in this particular condition, give him some dignity. And I guess that brings us up to the point of, the crime scene and the girls were displayed. Now, that was a prosecutorial decision. He could have very well asked, and I'm sure that Judge, Gull would have kindly, made it so the gallery couldn't see this. And it would be absolutely devastating for both the family and Richard Allen's family, but the families of the 2 girls to realize how bungled this case was. And, for those of you that don't realize it, the family, you might wonder, "Well, why haven't they spoken out? Why haven't they said anything about, 'This is absolutely the dude,' or 'We're not quite sure'?" They are also on a gag order. Now, this is fairly rare according to what I've heard from, uh defense attorneys and appellate attorneys. It is fairly rare to have the victim's family on a gag order. And there's just so many things in this case that it takes a while to sort of get you into it, get you figured out. But I guess the first thing we can come to as locals is if you want to pull up the sketches that we got. So, uh,
Oops.
I did break down the entire Frank's motion, and I've also broken down the probable cause affidavit in some videos. So, the first sketch that we got
Trying to.
was, let's see, so the one that they first let out was the one down on the bottom. There we
Wait,
go.
those 2,
So,
this
the
top one, right? Top left
the
one?
cap guy was first,
Okay, this
like
one.
golf cap guy.
This one.
No, on the bottom.
Oh, he was first?
Yeah, that was the first sketch that I ever saw that of what Bridge Guy was supposed to look like.
Well, in all honesty, those 2 are the only ones I ever saw. These other ones
Yeah, I'd never
were
seen the
new to
other
me, but
ones
they
until
are
the
I'd never
defense
seen
started
them.
bringing them out.
So, they're all
Now,
so different.
they are also different, as I break down the probable cause affidavit, there are even accounting for differences and eyewitness statements not being the best or most reliable, there are still a lot of inconsistencies with how all of the witnesses described the Bridge Guy. And then also how they even described Richard Allen's car, because it went from a purple PT Cruiser to a mini SUV to possibly an electric vehicle and or a '67 Comet.
That one I was like, "What?"
Or not exactly a comet, but different fenders, I guess, or I call them like aviate or aerators or just weird stuff.
Yes.
So, and having listened to the state's case, as much as I can, I'm still going through all the notes. We're not learning anything that we didn't know, except for the fact that I didn't know that one of the girls had her neck cut in a very odd pattern.
That's Libby.
Yes.
Had that, yes.
And it's sad. I don't wanna believe that anyone would unalive 2 children because one of their moms decided to, date outside of, paleness,
Yep.
but that does look the way the girls were treated were so different in death, and the state has done nothing to explain why that would be other than, Richard Allen said he was going to SA them. Now, the problem with that, in my book at least, is that he doesn't have any history. I know he's in his, state of being medicated and not medicated and, in isolation, stated that he might have, touched inappropriately his grandchildren, Mike, Diane, a bunch of different random names, and his daughter. This is not a first time crime,
No.
in my opinion. It is a high risk area. You have got to imagine that you have got to know the topography, where and where you would not be found in this particular area. You would have to know, how to muffle or silence 2 girls. You have to be able to control 2 girls. You have to be able to have enough time to have all the branches cut or, cut the branches because some of them look like they had been sawed through and not broken. You have to stage the girls. You have to redress the girls. You're putting on, odd clothes. So, took a lot of planning. This took a lot of fantasizing. This wasn't something that you just wake up one day and you're like, "Well, F it. I was gonna look at stock trades, but I'll just, unalive some girls." He also didn't show any signs of trauma after this. He didn't change his hair, he didn't change his appearance, he didn't, go quiet or cry every time, the anniversary came around, according to Kathy, and Kathy has been fairly straightforward and honest about everything, in my opinion.
Right.
I don't
My
know her.
He didn't leave town, he didn't get rid
No.
of his firearm, he didn't do anything. I think he lost
So
some weight, but who cares?
yeah.
Like, in 5 years?
So for 2 years, all we had was the sketch with, like, the golf cap and the hoodie, and we had Down the Hill. And the choppy sort of walking thing, and people poured over this. I mean, we had Reddit and 4chan on the mission. So we found a gentleman who looks exactly almost like the first sketch, called Daniel Nations, and he did have a history of, I think, being inappropriate with children. Now, he was cleared, and I'm either the lack of information that is coming out or, whatever alibi he had, it's kind of unclear how they cleared this gentleman. So that was the first,
Do you
kind of thing that was going on.
do you want that picture up?
Sure. So first, everyone thought we had cracked the case. Like, we are here, we've got him. Look, goofy guy meets goofy sketch. Like, we've got him. And he has a history of, children badness. We're here. Now, however way this happened, he was cleared. Then we found out that Libby, I believe, was texting a boy named Jordan Schatz, but that she was actually texting Keegan Klein. Now, Keegan Klein was, I do believe he was adjudicated guilty of having child grossness pictures, but in a weird twist, his father was also implicated and I believe charged for having child grossness. Also, he was talking to a bunch of young underage girls, and someone whether it was Keegan or the older Klein, went to their house. So we kind of had that lead that we thought was going on. So we've had little lead like sparks. We've had a little ideas and then nothing. So then I believe year 3 into the investigation, we get the next sketch, which is of a clearly younger guy with curly hair. And I do believe that this is from, it's not Carball. Sorry, I'm looking at notes while we're doing this.
No, that's
But
okay.
we get this sketch, and we also get the giant edition of Guys Down the Hill.
And did they add the step, him, that kind of back and forth step with that, or was that with the first sketch?
I believe the back and forth step thing was the first sketch because I remember people doing, like, advanced trigonometry and geometry to try to figure out his height, and some people even did computer reenactments, with the girls and kind of what happened. So we get this new sketch, which clearly is a younger person, which kind of, says and they never really discarded the first sketch. It was kind of like be on the lookout for both of these people. So that's where things maybe started evolving for me, especially, that, you know, maybe there were more people involved. Again, still at this time, I thought that they were shot. I thought that they were shot. Someone took them down there, tried to be essay them because I figured that was probably the one of the big motivating factors for getting 2 girls off a trail. But I thought that they had been shot. So we get nothing more from this case until they arrest Richard Allen. We don't get how they're going about this. We didn't, know. The probable cause affidavit was good about we kind of understood, okay, so Richard Allen had followed the instruction, like, if you are on the trail, please come tell us. He talked to a DNR agent who, misspelled his name, and it kind of got filed and forgotten. Now they bring Richard Allen in to kind of talk about what he was doing 5 years ago, and Richard Allen gives them the information, but he's like, "I watch, my wife and I watch, you know, Dateline News, we watch Law& and Order, so I'll help you guys with what I can. I need to talk." I guess he had the phone that he used to use at that time, somewhere in his house, he thought. And he said, "Yeah, generally I watch in or I think that day I was wearing blue jeans and a jacket. I don't even know if it was a Carhartt. I have, Carhartt knockoff kind of jackets that were blue or black." And the cops kind of approached him with Mullins. He was very gentle. He kind of said, "Okay, well, we're just trying to, get you off the thing. Can you do this? Can we look in your house?" And Richard Allen was kind of like, "Okay, yeah, but you need to get a search warrant. Like, I'm not going to let you guys pin me into this." Again, you're telling me that for 5 years, Command Central is 3 minutes away from the CBS, and no one had the brainstorm that this guy kind of if you squint and look in the sun,
Yeah.
it
You
just
can't put them together. Even when I try, like today I thought, well, fuller faced Richard Allen kind of looks like the guy in the hat. But then I looked at their eyes and I'm like, his eyes are too close together. The eyes in the sketches are farther apart. I can't get there.
and I don't know if it happened to you, but I sensed a profound sense of disappointment when I read uh, probable cause affidavit. Because I thought that they were going to be it was going to be full of, "Look, he was here, we have, triangulated his phone with trigonometry, we've got DNA, we've got, the knife he used because we finally figured it was a knife, we have all of the background, we know exactly he was, in certain chat rooms, we've been tailing him for a while, he did this, that, and the other." But when you come down to it, what they have are these confessions, which again, the jury is going to have to decide what they think about that. And you have an unspent shell casing that the only way they could get it to match was if the technician actually fired the weapon, and how absolutely challenged these ballistic tests are in many Supreme Courts. I know that currently Maryland has a case where they're trying to go with the validity of ballistics information. Because it's not the 100% thing that we kind of saw on, FBI files and CSI. It's not like a fingerprint. It's very
Right.
subjective.
Yes.
And I know that Ian Runkle has that challenge out that if any ballistics, expert can match, bags of bullets to which weapon, he'll give them X amount of money. The problem is there's so little there. You're telling me that this man unclothed 2 girls, um, cut their necks at a slightly downward angle. They were both downward, which makes me think that they were either being held back, which I would believe would require 2 people, or more terrifyingly, and this is speculation, so please take it as such, take out all your ramen noodle packets, all that amount of salt. Given how ritualistic this looks, given how absolutely this was a fantasy for a while. This was not something you just come up with. This person, whoever did it, if it's Richard Allen, if they can prove it, fine. But whoever ruminated, thought about this, like, absolutely wanted the placement to be both shocking and degrading for Liberty, and Abby was kind of an afterthought. All those things make me think that it's someone who knew the girls, and Richard Allen has stated that he didn't really know them. Now, again, that's what he stated, that's up for the jury to decide, but this is not a first crime to me.
I don't think I agree because no, how do you do this and you leave nothing behind? If
You
you're
leave nothing behind, you have to control 2 girls, you have to not only, take off all their clothing when it's wet or have them do it, so you need to have that use of force, that they're not going to start screaming, and according to the state's timeline, if you want to go with that, the girls are still alive when the dad is on the bridge screaming for them. Sound carries. The defense has been very good at this sound carries kind of thing that you can hear things.
and I don't
How
think
can
their tracheas were cut, so they should have still been able to yell.
well, even that, but how do you control 2 girls as one person? And especially how do you, slit the neck of one girl and not have the other girl run away unless they were bound and it doesn't look they didn't have abrasions or things like that, that would, maybe say, "Okay, it looks like you bound them, that's a good way you could have control." The fact that the blood goes down does make me wonder if this is a hunter who kind of bled them out. Uh, Field dressing. If you're from Indiana and you haven't seen a deer on a swing set, then let me just tell you, I
I
don't know. It is a magical moment when, you get to see a deer hanging upside down on a swing set.
I was in a McDonald's drive-through one time, and they brought one in on top of their car, and it looked like a crime scene because the car was covered. I'm like, "Thanks for coming in and ruining my breakfast while I just wanted to get a McMuffin." Like,
Yeah,
whatever. I so do you mean to I have the diagram that Court TV put up of the girls. Eh,
that's fine. I will say, I know there is a lot of controversy that, the gallery, and trusted media and Nancy Grace,
oh gosh, don't
um,
even
got to see the pictures of the girls in the crime scene. That was all the prosecutor's choice. He could have been deferent, and say, "Look, I'd rather this not be displayed to the galleries. I would rather this not, go, and tarnish the memory of 2 living girls with their last moments." They did that with the Shanda Vander Ark case. They didn't show pictures of
Right.
God, what is his name? I was just listening to something about him.
Timothy.
Timothy.
Mhm.
They didn't show his emaciated photo. The
I
judge
was
made
so
that
glad.
choice, and what an awesome choice for a judge. That could have been done. That was all on Nick McClelland. He wanted those photos out there because it is a weak case. What do they have on Richard Allen? They've got these confessions, which again, the jury is going to decide whether they were real or not. Um, I know that after 13 months in solitary confinement, I don't think I would be lucid, but I can understand people that, he confessed, he confessed. So I get that point. What I don't like about maybe being on the other side to say he needs due process and this is a weak case, just because I don't think that he is the right person or that they got the evidence to prove he's the right person means doesn't mean I want justice for Libby and Abby any less. I am in
Right.
fact enraged by how this case went. I cannot believe that the FBI and all those resources were blocked for reasons still to this day unknown. We don't know why they kicked the FBI out. We don't know why they didn't, say, "Hey, this is close to a highway. Have we looked at any truckers? Have we looked at this?" This case reminds me, and again, this is tinfoil hattery. This case reminds me a lot of the West Memphis 3. It happened in a wooded area close to a major thoroughfare. It was, children. It was deemed to be semi-ritualistic. And again, it wasn't a first crime, if you ask me. Again, I am not a doctorologist. I am just a person that watches way too much true crime. But and I think our rage also comes from the families. If all of this goes through, if all of this and he's not convicted, or he is convicted, but then it's appealed, we have wasted every year, every day since those little girls lost their lives in a terrible, tragic way. And I do implore you all to go if you have a chance to go to the bridge. It is an eerie feeling because you can hear the cars go by. You can hear people talking. And to be so close to, possible safety and so far away, it was just an overwhelming, eerie, sad feeling to know that, I was standing close to where those girls could have shouted, could have screamed, and, I would have run as fast as I can run, Lee. But to know that they were so close, they probably heard people walk past them, heard the cars just driving by, people everyday life, and there was no one there to save them.
And
That is
and
heartbreaking.
and maybe they didn't think because of being a wooded area and you do hear somebody driving, maybe they just didn't think anybody else was out there because it was a weekday, February, unseasonably warm, but I could see where they thought maybe there's nobody here to help us. I don't for me, when I heard the description of the crime scene and the injuries to the girls, I don't think I think they were moved. I don't think it happened there. I think they brought them back there. There was too many things they didn't check. They didn't take the soil to see to how much blood was in
Blood
the
was
soil. Like there's like you have Libby who they say put her hands up to
yeah,
her throat because her hands are covered and she moved because you have this big puddle here, you have
yeah,
another big puddle here, but then you have Abby who is clean and she doesn't have a big puddle underneath her, and I think it's not even on the right side of where it should be if I remember correctly. Um but yet they're saying that's where she passed away. It doesn't make sense to me that I think Abby had to be dressed before she was unalived. Because she's completely clean, and if you would have put those clothes on her afterwards,
Yeah,
that would have changed the direction of the blood flow on her face, which is it
upwards.
up.
But there are no
It
drag marks. So,
0.
again, this is and again, think about the extra step that takes. So, you want to bleed them out, but you don't want them to be bloody. I mean, that takes an extra level of fantasizing or working this out in your head. This is not something I mean, I never really want to go out and unalive some, but this would be something that many people, like if you go to the Joel Guy Jr. or the Chandler Halderson, there is that body kind of dilemma that these, unalivers have. If they have not fantasized, thought about it, they don't have any sort of idea of what they're gonna do with the body. This person did.
Mhm.
This person
Absolutely.
thought a lot about how they were going to put the bodies out, and it pisses me off. There's just so many things coming out that they didn't do. Like, they didn't test, the hairs around her hand. They didn't, I it was, conjecture whether they did an SA kit, and they're like, "Well, there was something, but we're not sure, but it turned out to be a state trooper." It's just all of these things go together to make such fertile ground for what the hell is going on and for people to ask questions. And had the state been a little bit more forthcoming, I still think that this would be a weak case, but I don't think that there would be a as much conspiracy theories. And thank you, She's Like Texas, for gifting 10 memberships, and those went to Shiraz. This Flaming Dragon, Eon Dobb, Lee Koo, young black economist, sorry, or Aaron Shipley, Miss Mouseling, KWS, Forever Wander, three. Sorry, English is my first language, and I still suck at it. But thank you so much. Let me start writing these down.
I, I'm with you. So I already told you my struggle today. Uh, somebody said it went by. I'm sorry that there was arterial spray. I think on the tree, which I thought was Libby's. Like it, the way I heard it described was she maybe had put her hands up around her neck and was walking, and then maybe had sat down when she obviously could not walk anymore, and then but then she was so she would have been sitting and then was moved. And but
It's
unless you can levitate people, I'm sorry, Richard Allen is not moving. I think Libby was the same height. Was she the same height or taller than him? I saw the heights today and I don't
I
remember
I
if she
I
was also
believe it was
5'4".
within an inch or so. I think
And
it was very close.
and unalived weight versus is very different to try to move. Like that is there's no way for him to move her. I don't even think he could physically move her, but obviously he's not moving her without drag marks.
Well,
And
and also, I mean, practically, if you've ever had a toddler and they go full, like, political prisoner dead weight mode, try getting them little stretchy pants, those little granimals on those children. I mean, it is like you need 8 people and a fire team.
yep. I mean,
So, I mean, to bring levity, but it's also a practical thing. I mean, it's dressing, moving, dead weight, so I'll tell you this, when I was still, very, very into lifting weights, I hadn't gotten hurt yet, I was able to deadlift, 230 pounds.
wow.
Then my daughter's friend decided it would be a really great idea to try to climb a pine tree with no branches. So I get a call from my daughter, and she's like, Kendall," or, her friend is hurt. Sorry, her name's not
Oops.
Kendall. Anywho, "So and so is hurt. Can you come over here?" And I have medical training, I was able to, because she is just lying on the ground in fall, like, I didn't realize at the time, but she had a broken pelvis. So I'm palpating the, reflexes on each. I'm looking for pulses, making sure she doesn't have a spinal fracture, but I need to get this child off the ground. She's going to get cold,
Wow.
things like that. She was obviously out of it. I mean, just she thought she's like, "What are we drinking? Like, do it." So I picked her up after I, figured out that she, as far as I could tell, she could feel everything. I wanted to get her off the ground. I picked her up, deadlifted her, and put her in the back of my truck or our van, our big people mover. Laid her flat, got her blankets, things like that. She was hella heavy, and she wasn't even 200 pounds. I mean, she's a fairly small girl. She's about my height, but because she wasn't able to help, because I needed another person there to spot me because I was very afraid I was going to drop her. But, moms, we just, get that mama bear energy and
Yep.
we can just pick up like an entire car. But that is probably it's a very different thing when you have dead weight, no one is helping you, and keeping control of yourself. Again, all doing this all while being completely quiet, not making any noise. It's too much to try to ignore. It doesn't fit. These puzzle pieces do not fit. Now, I think they would have been better had they tried to link Richard Allen to other people who might have done this. And to this day, the FBI still has Abby and Libby up and Bridge Guy up asking for tips, I do believe. I think it's still active on the FBI
Wow.
side.
That says a lot. It it says a lot, and I know there's procedures and everything because the defense is trying
Thank
to
you.
do. Every time I hear this word, I know you guys are all going to think it too. The TUI, like they have to do the. Sorry, I can't hear it without hearing the first part of it. But
Yeah.
and then so the FBI is fighting the defense to try to get these statements in, which doesn't make sense to me. I it's like, why don't, if you have something, just come in and testify to it. Don't make them jump through all these hoops to
It
get
is
this in.
very odd. Another thing that we have recently learned is that the FBI was asked to return all case material to Carroll County and Unified Command. So they were to give over everything. They couldn't, like do a little side job with it, a little moonlighting, you know, everything was asked to be returned. It's just, again, had the state said, "Look, we think we can have this on our own. We've utilized all the resources with the FBI that we want to," that's a different story. The problem is that we have not been told any story.
Right.
We got Richard Allen done it. We have this bullet, and for a while, all that was released was the probable cause affidavit because Judge Gold illegally sealed a lot of public supposed to be publicly available records. So then we got a big data dump in, I believe, May of the year that Richard Allen was jailed. We got a big data dump. There still, again, wasn't anything in there because I kept looking at everything. I organized it, I went through it, and I was like, maybe there's something more there. Maybe they didn't put everything in the probable cause affidavit. He wasn't going to break. That's the problem. If
Right.
you watch the first 2 interviews, first with Mullins acting kind of congenial and saying, "We just wanna eliminate you," this, that, and the other, and Richard Allen, if there's anything you can take from Richard Allen, and I think this is also a big juxtapose, and I know people can live with, like BTK and think he's great and all that, and they can have dual lives, but you can tell that Richard Allen doesn't care what they do to him.
Right.
He didn't get pissed off with Holman. He didn't go off on Holman until he learned that Holman had talked to Kathy and his daughter, and that's where he got pissed off. He was like, "You come at me. You do not touch my family." And that's his linchpin. That's his
Yep.
thing. And in some of the confessions, you can tell that he is trying to talk to Kathy. he is trying to say, "Look, I'll take this, I wanna be able to see you," which makes me question, why is a gentleman who is on, unalive watch, why is he given his tablet and call time at 3 AM?
Right.
And then there's kind of some shenanigans going on where it doesn't quite disconnect at the end of the recording, and he's like, "Is that okay? Okay?"
Yeah. And also, if you listen to his so-called confessions, he is saying to Kathy, "If this gets to be too much for you, I'll say what they want to hear. Like,
Yeah.
I'll tell them what they want to hear." That's not saying I did it. That's not saying it's like, I'll just take it so you can go on with your life.
Yeah, and it's come out that this, therapist or mental minder or whatever Dr. Wall is, if she still has a license at the end of this case, I will be shocked. She was in all the true crime, all the RA, all of this, you know, it even if you think Richard Allen is the guiltiest guilty person that ever lived, he should not have been treated the way he's been treated by the state of Indiana.
Yep.
He was sent to solitary confinement for 13 months. We have, all sorts of, testimony from these, buddies, unaliving buddies, and this kind of thing that he's faking. Now, I haven't seen the videos. I don't know. I'm not a doctorologist. But when someone's eating their own poo and they tell me that they murdered their grandchildren and he doesn't have any grandchildren,
And he
or he
murdered
says
his family.
foxtrot, foxy lady, and starts running around masturbating while jogging, you know, I don't I trust those confessions about as much as I trust Sarah Boone in her, suitcase buying advice.
Sorry.
Well, I'm painting a picture, but today and I recommend that you guys follow, Defense Diary and Andrea Burkhart and Lawyer Lee. I always wanna say lawyer
Yes.
but, you know, I do think that we are at a reckoning point. So let's say we take Richard Allen out of this, and we take everything. Is this what's going on in prisons? Do we have people that are in solitary confinement for years, and then we want them to rehabilitate? Do we, force drug people? Do we have guards that are sitting there and, not even calling mental health because they think the person is malingering as they're, smearing their own waste on the wall? Are what are we intending to do with our prison system? Are we trying to house them and just never let them out because we've turned them institutionalized? Or are we trying to rehabilitate people? I mean, Westville Correctional Facility had, I believe, several lawsuits and is getting shut down.
Yeah, it is, and
King of capybaras. No lies detected.
I
And
forgot what I
also
was gonna say, sorry.
Eyes on Delphi, uh, is a website. They have collaborated and corroborated all of the evidence, uh, or all of the notes, sorry, of the disparate people going to the court every day. So if you can't watch that, if you'd rather read it, they do have a, list and you can open up the documents and look at the notes that were taken. They have a great team that's like typing up all of these lawyers' notes as they, come through. So it is really, very disheartening that the judge has made choices to keep the public out. Now, I do know that this ostensibly stems from Judge Diner alleging, or though I've never seen proof, but recusing himself because of the undue media and I guess political sort of rigmarole. There was a lot of media requests. Everyone wanted to get in on this. Everyone wanted to know that we caught this monster. I mean, I think I slept very, very, peacefully. I thought, "We got him." You know, they always would say in those little updates, like, "We're moving slowly, but we're gonna get there." Like, "We're going through everything with a fine-tooth comb." And then to learn that they didn't even test the damn DNA. They had subpoenas for the phone records and phones of the Westville or 2 other suspects. I get into this a lot with the Franks motion, and thank you so much, TLA 1616, Terry.
Terry.
Yes. It is so lovely that people can and are able to get this information out to us because there was no way I was going to be able to go and wait at 1 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning and then, skip lunch to wait for the afternoon, then drive home and do all of the things that I have to do family wise. And I'm also glad I wasn't there for the crime scene photos.
Yeah, that would have been
I
awful.
think I think that I wish that McClelland had made the choice to not include the gallery. I
I
think that that would have been dignified, especially with Liberty being nude.
Yeah, but he's not dignified, and it he's not done anything dignified in my opinion, and I think he
Yeah,
did it just for shock value of here they are, and he knows what's getting reported. It's like
yeah,
I've really tried to I've only like I told no. I've really only listened to Andrea so far because it's the coverage is it takes her so long to get through a day. So by the time I'm done listening to her, I don't have a whole lot of time to go, listen to somebody else, and I need to do better on that. But reading the articles in the media, it's like, okay, you've got Judge Gold carrying the state's water. You've got the media, for the most part, mainstream media carrying the state's water. And it's it's disgusting because they're all reporting that he's confessed. He's done this. He's confessed 60 times. It, and I'm like, to I guess if that's your definition of a confession, but a definition of confession to me is like, I did it. I'm losing my mind. And he clearly is and was. Because I don't think he's the same. He'll never be the same. I don't know what's going to happen to him, but it's like you're
he's never going to be cleared in the minds of some people.
right.
You know, even even if he gets acquitted or they have a mistrial. And I did see a question. This case has cost Carroll County upwards of $4 million. So all of the investigation, all of the testing that they've done, um, they did do genealogical tests, or at least they paid $20,000 for a genealogical DNA test sort of thing. We're just now getting sort of the balance sheets and what's going on with that. We still don't have like an itemized what was going on. Did they actually get something? But the absolute negligence that they did not test the DNA around Abby's fingers, the absolute, uh, TLA, no, I have not, I've been to the, handy capable segments of the bridge. I did not try to walk down any sort of steep embankment or anything like that. So I really don't have that. I do know that I think that Defense Diaries is planning to do like a drone fly dealy to kind of get a real good idea of the top of the topography, but it really is quite amazing, and to watch these defense attorneys, to watch them kind of understand the weirdness of Indiana, because I just did jury duty in Indiana, not any other state that I know of, because every defense attorney has been shocked. In Indiana, the jury is allowed to discuss things as long as they're not deliberating. So,
Which is crazy to me. I did not
yeah,
know that that was
I
allowed.
double checked with the bailiff because I was like, "This is wrong. This
Yes.
is wrong." I know I watched trials, okay? It was a '76 Tempest, okay? Because it had positive traction, you know? I was just Yeah, it does make deliberation quicker. I will say our jury was kinda like, "Eh, yeah, no," we weren't deliberating, but I was asking questions because it was about hunting, and I don't know anything about hunting. I mean, I understand it, but from a practical
Yeah, I
standpoint,
have no idea about it. Yeah, I'm with you there.
yeah. So, it was crazy to me that we are able to talk to each other. And for the jurors that are sequestered, I think this is good because this is such a heavy case,
Yes.
such a heavy case. No one wanted to see these girls be forgotten. No one wants their monster to go unpunished.
And that's the problem. If they do acquit Richard Allen, I think they'll just walk out and be like, "Jury got it wrong." And that's it.
Yeah,
They won't look, even though, we have these unknown female pairs that they didn't test. Is it unknown female number 3? And I, because Kelsey is unknown female number 1. Is
yes.
Do I remember that correct?
I
And
believe so, but
and I
yeah, it's
but they didn't test them because they weren't looking for a female perpetrator. Well, you don't have to be looking for a female perpetrator, but what if they connect you back to who did it? And also, why can't it be a female perpetrator?
well, even if you wanna be strategically smart, if you're McClelland, you better know where those hairs came from. You better not because it comes out during voir dire that there are untested hairs. That not only starts the trial off with you looking incompetent and unable to look at even blatant clues. It it doesn't look good starting off. It doesn't look good. So if you wanted to take that away from the defense, you should have had it tested and said, "Well, look, we think it came from, Libby's sweatshirt," uh, but you should have an answer to that because you know the defense is going to use that. You know you have a fairly weak case. You know that people like they did another thing that they did during trial because if you don't know, Indiana also allows jurors to ask questions of the witnesses. So typically whoever's case in chief will get up first and do the direct, then they'll do cross. Then Judge Goal or one of them, I maybe the clerk will ask if the jury has questions. What gives me hope is that these jury questions have been on top of it.
Oh,
It came out
absolutely.
that they didn't do a DMV search of who might have had a Ford Focus, um, you know, at the time of the murders. They didn't even do a DMV search.
Yep.
This is insanity. This is I mean, even, you know, just all the craziness. Not they didn't do the basic testing.
Right.
You
And
have a
even if
gentleman in Elvis Fields who is part of maybe the third party thing that after he did his little interview, not interrogation, an interview, he mentions to the state trooper as he's walking back into his house, "Hey, if I spit on the girls and you were able to find DNA, but I had a good explanation, would that mean I'm in trouble?"
yeah, why
I
would you
would
say that?
highly recommend they are long streams, I'm not or videos, but I do a five-part series where I break down the Frank's memo, and it is full of connections that came directly from the discovery. This is why it is so disheartening that the initial interviews were lost. The state lost these third-party people that they decided to get a warrant for their phone, but then never recovered the phones. There are just so many things like this that don't make sense, that don't make logical sense if you're trying to find someone, if you are trying to, you know, exhaust all leads because this is a whodunit in the most literal sense of the word. It
I
also
Go ahead.
it also I mean, you've got Jerry Holman, who was a high, Well, she stole my name, that's the problem.
Not
I
me.
remember I dressed up as her one year for Halloween because her name was Marissa too, and then I was like, "My biological clock is ticking here," and my mom was like, "You cannot use that line." I was like, "Well, I was 11, I didn't know what a biological clock was, but
I
I
had no
figured it was
idea.
like an alarm clock that, gave you zits or something." I did
Yeah, your yours hadn't started ticking yet, so you had no you're like, "I don't know what
Yeah,
that
my mom
means."
was like, "That is not the line we're gonna use with that." So I settled with, "Yeah, you blend. You blend."
Sorry, she's kinda disappeared.
Well, yeah, well, she was in the new Spider-Man with, oh gosh, he looks like he's 12 years old, not Tobey Maguire. He's dating Zendaya. I he's a little guy. Terrible. Tom something or other. I don't know.
Oh, no, the only
Tom
names coming
Holland. Thank you.
I was
I've
gonna
g
say Hardy, and I was like, "I know Tom Hardy is wrong." Holland.
eh
Sorry, I think I dated myself.
oh, no, I don't remember. I'm loving being at the age where people comes out with, like, the fresh actors, and I'm like, "Don't know you, don't know you, don't care. What
Yeah,
the hell is that dress? Never my daughter. You're not my daughter, don't care." And where are all the manly men? I'm like,
I
"Where's the Jake Ryan?" I was like, "Where's the man?"
and you're even more ahead of me than that because I'm like, I don't we were talking about music the other day, and I said, I listen to 80s. If I'm not listening
Yeah.
to a stream, like driving, I'm listening to 80s or earlier. And I haven't listened to like quote unquote today's music in forever. I have no idea. I don't even recognize most of the names that I see anymore. I'm like, who are you?
Carrie B, that's a good question. So if they caught and convicted people on the same bullet evidence, why is it a question in his case? I will tell you that it is being brought up by more defense attorneys, and there are several Supreme Courts and states that are having to redefine how they present ballistics evidence. So instead of it being presented like a almost fingerprint, now it has to be presented as they can not exclude it from being fired from that weapon, but it's not a 100% or kind of fingerprint. It's very subjective, and that is where a lot of defense attorneys and people who actually study the science are very, um, kind of skeptical of it. And yes, go watch any of Ian Runkle's videos. He is a, defense attorney in Canada who specializes in firearms, so he can explain it in all of these smarty smart words. I am simply saying that it's very subjective. I mean, it's basically a person looking at a split screen microscope and saying, "Yes, it fits," or "No, it doesn't."
Yeah,
And
because
the
that's what they
reason that it
show you.
and the reason this is so important in this case is because they did take, Richard Allen's force multiplier. They cycled the cartridge through. They could not get the same marks unless they fired it.
And
So
wasn't didn't they
that
have to fire it 3 times to get that?
yes. Yes, so we're not comparing apples to apples, we're
Mm-mm.
comparing apples to oranges now, so it's one step further removed in a subjective process, and if this is the only thing they have to link him to the crime, it makes it very odd for now his latest confession, the one that they said had the details that no one else had. You get startled from SAing the girls by this van, but you still take at least 30 minutes to 20 minutes to unalive them, undress them, redress them, put them in a pose, get sticks down. It doesn't make sense that you would be startled from the SA, but not startled away from the murder.
Right.
And not to mention his therapist was in all of these blogs. It has been rumored out the yin yang that, this white van showing up startled the unaliver. This from the beginning, this has been a theory. It's always been a theory that, someone coming home startled him or her or them. So, while this really isn't something that only the murderer would know, this is something that's been conjecture since this started, and then to have the box cutter thing brought up, we have a medical examiner who is not a forensic pathologist. So, we don't have someone who specializes in wounds, what they look like, how they look like with different instrumentality. We got someone who was elected who didn't have these backgrounds. Now, he goes in and he states that the box cutter, it could have looked serrated because of the plastic grip catching. Now, that never happens when I cut carpet with I mean, I'm not gonna do for science, cut myself with a box cutter. This is
Thank you.
I'm only slow sort of method acting here. But the identifications, the possibilities of different weapons leads you to believe that this is more than one person. At least in my book. I mean, again, I don't carry knives now around, but if I did, I would only carry one or a Leatherman. So, you have to imagine that Richard Allen saw these girls. He knew what he was going to do. He'd been fantasizing about it for years. He got all this done. He has 2 different weapons, and he does this still after he was startled. You know, not to mention, we've had cases where people have confessed. There was a tragic case of, I think, 2 little girls in New Mexico that were unalived on Mother's Day, and the father found the bodies of the girls. He went on to confess to a crime he never did. They only found the perpetrator because the perpetrator unalived several other women, and his DNA hit on the little girls. This was after the father had been in jail for 5 years. Most of his family didn't talk to him anymore. I mean, he was considered all the guilty. He confessed. I believe that there was an entire family who confessed to unaliving a man that they found in a middle of a lake in his car. So they confessed to dismembering him, letting the family dogs eat him, and they all it's up on Twitter today. I just read through the case a little bit.
Wow.
But false confessions are not atypical. I mean, that's kind of why, um let's take something kind of controversial, I'm not trying to make it political, but waterboarding, we used to use that to get information. When people are under high psychological stress and things like that, they were getting unreliable information because you will say anything to get this to stop. It's It's very easy, and I can understand because, God, I wish it were Richard Allen. I wish I could believe, I wish I could convince myself it were, because I want these girls to be avenged. I want their families to be at peace. I can't imagine the pain and the torture and the heartache of knowing how incredibly terrified your little girls were, in their final moments.
Yep.
And you couldn't do anything to help them. You could have been feet away. I mean, I can't imagine how that would eat you up to know that you could have been, within distance to help your little girls and you didn't know.
Yeah.
And to have this become, this fertile ground for conspiracy theories, everyone, some early on YouTubers, some streamers, some true crimers really went hard on the families, wanted to take every single maybe misstep or, personal tragedy, personal info, and make them the suspects. And it was done because we didn't have anything. I don't excuse that. I think, again, going after the family, bad. I wouldn't do it, in poor taste. But there's something not right about this. There is something that seems contrived, seems they were waiting. They broke this man to get a confession because they needed it. And if you need a confession because there is not enough corroborating evidence, then you don't have a case to take to trial. And the fact that Judge Gold has been such an unmitigated disaster is ridiculous. This woman is an insult to justice, to blind justice, to due process. She is hand so even let's in the minutia, in the minute sort of things that she does, you can see the greater injustice. So every time that the defense was trying to impeach certain witnesses because their testimony did not align with what they were, deposed with, if it was McClelland would say out of the scope of redirect. Now, typically, judges allow this kind of out of the scope for impeachment of character because all of these witnesses are here because, in theory, they're all supposed to be telling the truth.
Right.
So, if there's something that they are, misleading you or, changing their stuff, generally judges allow you to go a little out of the scope because truthfulness is kind of the base that we use to, see this. Uh, we need to be able to trust these witnesses. And every time they would come close to impeaching them, McClellan would yell out or would, object outside of scope, and the judge would, sustain it, thereby making it to where the defense would have to call these people. Not to mention, there's so many times where Judge Gold just, I don't know what Rozzy and Baldwin did to her. I don't know if like one of their kids like, said that he was gonna take her granddaughter to the prom and then stood her up like, never been kissed. I don't know, but this woman has a hate boner for the defense.
Yes, she does, and it's pathetic. It is absolutely horrible because if the defense gets an objection overruled or if they get an objection sustained, you about just fall over because you just don't expect it. It's like almost the state just has to go, and she goes, "Sustained." She doesn't even have to
Yeah,
listen to it. She's not citing any laws. Like when the defense is bringing up things, she's like, "Well, the law clearly states," but doesn't say it. She's not saying it's this statute or whatever. I'm probably phrasing it wrong. I'm not an attorney. Um,
yeah.
but that she's not stating it. Like other judges will say, this is the law, this is what it says, this is why. She's like, that's just the law. I'm the
Well,
law.
it was very telling in having watched this case. So, there was a period of time that she had disqualified the original defense, Bradley and Rozzy. She picked 2, kinda handpicked Allen County. So Judge Gull is not from Carroll County. She is from Allen County. She was specially appointed to kind of, give the impression of impartiality, which turned out to be like Pandora's box of stupid. But anyway, when she picked 2 Allen County, defense attorneys, I looked into them. So you had one attorney, one defense attorney who had been on local news, talking and opining about the spent cartridge or the unspent cartridge, saying that it looked really bad. You had Librato, who had just gotten off a fresh suspension for it looks like maybe creative accounting or creative hour padding from
Nice.
what it looks like. Now Librato and Gull are friends on Facebook. Now, that doesn't mean a whole lot except for how these things shook out. Now, it is interesting that when her handpicked defense was there, she was willing to at at least entertain the Franks motion. She, in fact, asked them, "Are you intending to bring the same Franks motion? And I would allow it if you want to." Until the defense made some very, very interesting statements, and even Librato has, I think, talked to Barbara McCarthy, maybe? No, McDonald. She's with Court TV, she's done a great series, but William Librato talked to her, she's under Barbara Newsy News, I believe, which I trademarked that. Just kidding.
In case she didn't know.
Uh, I'll have to put her name up, but, they had the same exact experience of really very odd behavior. I mean, you've also got to imagine, so when these lawyers come in for the first defense team, they were going to Westville. The door had to remain open when they were talking to their client. Richard Allen was handcuffed like this, so could not pick up papers to look at it. He's always handcuffed like this. The door was open, and there were guards with a camcorder. Now, allegedly, they said that there wasn't sound, but there was, in fact, sound on these. And they were recording what Richard Allen was saying to his lawyers. That is beyond, interference in legal things. What is funny is that Richard Allen was then moved to Wabash, and his new handpicked defense discovered the same thing. Richard Allen was put in like a meal prep room in a tiny, tiny cell with a solid steel door with like one of those envelope flaps. And they were supposed to try to talk to him from 6 feet away, show him digital discovery. They have also, I mean, you've got defense attorneys that have collectively served in Indiana for over 150 years, if you combine all their time or thereabouts. They have never experienced anything like this. This Richard Allen has been treated like no other person in the history of jurisprudence. He was taken to solitary confinement for safekeeping. Judge Gull said that the defense, I mean, basically called them liars, that Richard Allen was being treated better than other patients. And I have seen that, or at least according to Andrea and Defense Diaries, the jury is definitely looking side eye at McClelland now. These videos, I'm sure, are horrific. And again, even if you think he is the most guilty man ever, do you want him to confess of his own volition, or do you want him to confess when he is, you know, spanking it to Jesus,
Yep.
which he did do with the Bible, allegedly. So,
And given Halidol injections against
yes.
his will, which is awful. I don't not familiar with that drug, but I have heard it does awful things to people. And
And without full medical or mental health. So, according to a lot of testimony from these guard, mental health, thing, people didn't come in until what, like 7 or 8 o'clock. So, if you had a mental health crisis with these people, you just had to wait. I mean, if they really hurt themselves, we can call a nurse. These are people. They did bad things. They did terrible things, but these are still people's, brothers, sisters, sons, they're people. If we want these people to reintegrate into society, to have, a way to redeem themselves, if this is the general treatment of prisoners, I understand the recidivism rate. If this is the general sort of tact that we take with people, then this is we are turning out monsters.
well, and he's not a prisoner technically. He's not been
No.
convicted. He's there for quote unquote safekeeping. And
Yeah.
it's like you put him in prison and you treated him worse than people there that have been convicted. You put him in, I've heard maximum and then I've heard medium, that Westville or Feel, is it Ville or Feel? I don't know which,
Westville.
it's going
Or
away. Uh but he was treated worse than the people that were there that have been convicted. And I know there's innocent people in prison, so I'm not saying that, you understand what I'm saying. They
Yeah.
treated him worse. They treated him different. You have unaliving or self-deletion buddies sitting outside, which are inmates, which have been convicted of crimes that involve dishonesty, as most crimes do, and they're supposed to report the truth. And then I'm sitting here going, are you getting any breaks for what you report back on this? I don't have any proof of that. It's just in my
No.
mind.
But
saying
see,
that.
therein lies the problem. If you engage in shadiness, if you don't give to the public, if you don't make this accessible, you invited the public to help. You said, at any point, if you notice any behavioral changes, if you notice someone cutting their hair, if you notice someone getting unusually quiet. So they invited the public's help and then kept everything to the vest. And that could be a great strategy. But it also then is a fertile growing, you know, ground in which to seed conspiracies. So I'm not, a big, fancy pants lawyer, but there has to be some sort of strategy, some sort of give and take. If you want, the help from the public, then you have to be honest. And we haven't even gotten into the guards that had Odinist patches on. And then one who got a face tattoo because nothing says no regrets like a face tattoo of Odin.
No, Carmen, but thank you. Because I won't get it right, so I don't want to explain that. Uh, but even okay, and this is nothing against any law enforcement and because there's good cops out there. There's bad cops. There's good and bad in everything. I don't care who you are, what you do. You're the guards that were set outside of his cell or to check it every 15 minutes, whatever the protocol was at the time of whatever his status was at the time. They're not mental health
Experts.
experts, I
Now,
guess. But
yeah,
and they're saying, "Oh no, he's malingering. He's feigning." Because your training and experience told you that. And I'm not even taking away from training and experience, but it's
a
not
a
right.
2-month course is not gonna tell you how to properly identify malingering behavior versus real psychosis. It's not going to give you that, and that's not denigrating correction officers. I think they should have better training for mental health considering how prevalent it is with people that commit crimes. I mean, this is a highly intense job to be a correctional officer. If you do it correctly, you're dealing with people with loads of problems, don't wanna follow the rules, and you have to maintain, integrity and self-control, and while you're being called or, thrown the most disgusting things on you, that's a lot. So, we are at an inflection point where we either need to start paying these people more and expecting more of them, or we are going to turn out so many monsters. It is not funny. 13 months in solitary confinement is insanity, is completely unconstitutional. It was not safe keeping him. He was in the loving arms of guards who filmed him all the time. The other inmates, on the row assumed his guilt. It doesn't make sense why they safe kept him when there was Cass County Jail, there was Allen County Jail. There are so many other jails that I'm sure have a special, unaliving cell. They made it hard for him to get his lawyers there. It it absolutely was a tactic. It was an idea.
Oh,
They wanted
absolutely.
to break this man. They wanted to, have him confess because they have so little. That's the problem. They don't have enough. I cannot, in good conscience, after everything I've gone through thus far, say that because of, you know, him having confessed to wearing blue jeans and a jacket and possibly a skull cap, and then them finding a bullet that may be, could possibly be related to his weapon, but could be related to many others.
Absolutely.
3 days after they opened up the crime scene. Now, they say that they found it, in the dirt under about an inch of dirt, but we don't have pictures of that. They didn't take pictures of them digging out. They didn't take pictures of where they found it. It is beyond disgusting. Just like I don't like Sarah Boone. I've made that fairly clear. I think she's a cahoot, if you will. But I wanted her to have a fair trial so that
Me
she
too.
can appeal. This trial will be overturned. The habeas group, the group of, lawyers who stay in the books, as they say, stay in professorial kind of things. They are absolutely not having this. The state of Indiana had a choice. They could have gotten rid of Gull. I I changed my votes for a lot of people on the Supreme Court, when I voted this weekend. I did not renew any of the Supreme Court justices because they had a chance to stop this, to put a real committed judge who was going to play fair on this, and they gave Gull a little slap on the wrist, and then, she was able to continue her, one-sided, very one-sided, you know, fence sitting basically, or goalpost, moving. It's a sports reference, I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. I'm like, "It's like curling, I don't know what it is." I'm kinda confused, it looks like competitive sweeping.
Goalpost moving is better than fence setting because
Yes.
to me, a fence setter is right in the middle,
Yeah,
and
I
she is definitely
I
not there.
realized that, yeah, fence sitter, but goal it just if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, and that's the problem people are having, because this isn't Hollywood, this has real stakes. It's not, a whodunit or like a case that I don't really know. This could have been my girls.
Mhm.
I mean, they weren't the same age, but if I lived in Delphi and my girls were like, "Hey, I wanna go walk," we have a day off, and they were that age, I would have been like, "Fine, take your cell phone, don't be" you know, probably would tell them like, "Don't walk across the bridge," and of course, there's just
They
film evidence of them walking across the it would not it is every parent's nightmare. And I wish that people on this case and on others would not assume that if you have questions about the case, if you are not convinced, if you have, doubts, it's not because you want, someone to go free and fun, fun, fun. I want to catch the real monster.
right.
That's the whole point. We want to get the real monster. We want to get the real person who has been done doing this. Lady Tammy, I have, an entire list. I go over the Franks motion. I will be clear that I have a bias toward the defense, not because I hate the state, but the state has yet to prove to me what is going on. But, if you would like a more state look at this, I know that Gary Hughes Investigates has a lot of stuff. I encourage you to look at both sides. I mean, Nancy Grace was here, so we have to fumigate all of Indiana with sage and a Unitarian priest.
I'm sorry if you like Nancy Grace, but the fact
See
that the
oh, yeah.
woman is only sitting in the courtroom for 60 to 90 minutes at a time before she's running across the street to say what the prosecutor has said and never listening to what the defense is raising and the questions that the defense is raising, she's eh, sh- she has him guilty. She wants him guilty, and she's only going to
Well,
report on things
yeah,
that are guilty. So she's
and
biased the other way.
and what scares me, what worries me, is that you have people because this is so inaccessible to the public. I believe right now, in order to get a transcript, they are projecting that it's going to be like $5 to $6 a page, and they still haven't produced transcripts for the hearings as of yet. Now, what I worry about is this is going to be a bit like the Rittenhouse case. So you have mainstream media saying one thing. You have those of us nerds who watch the entire trial or try to get all the stuff that know a different side of the story. And then normies are going to be very, very confused as to how, if he gets a mistrial, if he gets acquitted, or if he gets convicted and the appeal is reversed for umpteen amounts of reversible errors, they are gonna be so confused. They are
Mhm.
not gonna understand what happened because the media is putting out there, the mainstream and, Nancy Grace is putting out there, he's like guilty 7 ways to Sunday. This shouldn't even be a case. We should just, string him up in town square.
Yep. Yep. And that's
It
what I will say how bad this case is going for the state. That's how the comments started when Richard Allen was arrested. Start up the electric chair, this,
Yeah,
fry him, get him going. And it has so turned. That tells you how bad it is for just the normal people that are reading the mainstream media's report. That
yeah,
I see a lot of people in comments that must be watching kind of like we are, of more in-depth coverage, of saying, no, that's not what happened. No, you're not reporting the whole story. Why are you only telling half? Why are you not telling the other side? Why? And I love it. They never answer, of course, but I think it's great.
so if I could, yeah, on a positive note, I think people are waking up. I know that when I first started watching trials, I think my first trial was when I was doing forced resting. I don't do forced resting well. I was still trying to like hobble around on a boot and mop floors and stuff, and Mr. Mo would have to catch me and like damn near hog tie me to sit down. So I think I started with the Rittenhouse trial. And I thought, okay, well, then the state must have everything. Like the state would not go after an innocent person. And I I definitely thought that, and then you had the, Kim Potter case. Watching these trials, you see the best of both worlds, the best and worst. So, you have, like, the state in the Darrell Brooks case where I think they did an excellent, respectful, and very competent job in that case. And then you have Binger,
Gosh,
or
my
you
my
have,
lunchbox.
yeah, and then you have the Kim Potter case. Where, that you have the Daniel Penny case. I mean, there are so many cases where it started opening up my eyes that there are political, you know, connotations, there are political maneuvers in this. And I don't know if I just ignored it or I didn't really think about it because I've always been such a goody two shoes, like, oh my gosh, I mean, I think the worst thing I do is speed like 5 miles over the hour
I'm
or
with you.
over the limit, but to be fair, have you ever been forced behind someone who is religiously going the speed limit?
Yes, all the
I'm
time,
like
all the
I'm like,
time,
and
or
they're turning
below.
left for the last 80 miles? It's like, "Are you gonna turn left at any point? Do you not hear this do you not hear the clicker?"
I I
Okay,
I live in the country where farmers are driving by looking at, like, "Did the corn grow today? I don't know, but are you gonna I'll get out and measure it for you because you're going 5 and I can, and you're in the middle of the road, so I can't get around you. So I'll measure the
yeah.
corn while you drive down the road." So I'm with you, and sorry, it just drives me nuts if you can't tell.
No, no, I have living out in the country too, but where it's hilly, we get the Tour de France bikers.
Oh, do you get Hilly 100?
N I haven't hit 100 people, I mean,
That goes by that, we get them every October. It's the, whole weekend. It's 100 miles, so 50 miles
oh,
each day,
God
and
be with you.
it's all and they disregard every stop sign, I mean, everything, and they oh my gosh. I've even moved, and they
It's
still go past my house. I'm like, "I'm
it's
trying to stay
it's
away
when
from you."
they're telling me, like, "Go around me," and I'm like, "I'm coming up to a double yellow blind curve, how about no?"
Yes, I
Like, I
can't.
will speed pass and give you the middle finger when it is very possible for me to do it. Also, any sport that, requires you to sit on an uncomfortable seat that hurts your jungular area and makes you wear spandex, how does anyone get into this sport?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I try to be nice, but, yes. What
But
did you
here's the other thing that I really want you guys to understand. Delphi is a small town. It's like my town. We're known for, like, mineral spring water, I think, once in the 1930s. Everyone waves to you. You do the little doot doot thing
Mhm.
on your steering wheel, people pass by. 1,200 people. It's not a big town. This is earth-shattering for this town. This town will probably never recover its sense of innocence, its sense of, feeling safe anymore. And the police had an opportunity to lock this up. They could have been not arrogant, let the FBI come in, let them use all of the resources that the FBI has. We still haven't figured out why the FBI was uninvited to the party.
Which opens for more conspiracies of it was
Yes.
somebody that law enforcement knows. It's somebody I see comments all the time. It was somebody on the fire department. There, that it's somebody that they don't want to put out there to get in trouble, but they do know who it is. And then, sorry, Richard, sorry, Mr. Allen, you're going to take the fall for this because we can't allow the person that we know did this to do that. That's what allows for these conspiracies to come up because
Well,
you kicked out the FBI.
and imagine the chilling effect this is going to have. So, Richard Allen basically is here because he tried to be a helpful citizen. I mean, or he's the world's dumbest criminal and he decided to confess to be there. You have to pick this. So he's either a mastermind who was able to do all of this without the girls, yelling out. He had planned it out so sufficiently and efficiently that he had barely been caught in 5 years. This, without the other taunting behavior, like the Zodiac kind of thing, like sending in messages or anything else, it doesn't fit into taunting the police or trying to ingratiate yourself into the investigation, which killers sometimes do. Like the Sandra Cantu weird lady, I think Melissa What's Her Face, who was like, "Oh my gosh, there was a suitcase stolen. I have a note." And people are like, "Crazy lady. It's a suitcase. Stop." But she ingratiated, so they should have been looking for that. They didn't say anything about filming the funerals or the memorials. These are standard things that they will do when they don't know. Are there odd people that came to the memorial? Did Richard Allen go to the memorial? Did Richard
Right.
Allen, sit there? Did he, ingratiate himself to the family? Did he do anything like that? Did he get unusually quiet around the time? We don't have those kind of links, and that's why it doesn't make sense to me, just as a casual bystander.
So my understanding was when the FBI was asked to leave, they were doing the forensics on the phone, on Libby's phone. Is if I'm remembering correctly. I've had so much information overload that I may not be. But that they also, when they asked them to leave, and I'm with you, M169, I didn't know that they could be uninvited. But I guess so. They didn't ask them for what they had on the phone. On So also that doesn't make sense. What did you not even care to look at and to not see? And also, why did her phone stop working? And then at 4:30 in the morning, it magically comes back on and starts getting all these messages in if they weren't moved, if they weren't taken somewhere that was out of range and then brought back because the searchers were right there.
It doesn't make sense because, and I have to see the maps to make it sense of all of this because they go, like, left, right, and I'm directionally challenged.
Me too.
So, I need to look at, Delphi, our allies on Delphi, and because they'll have maps, but it seemed like no one was over in that grave area. There was a police officer who went over to that particular entrance, and there's several homes. He went over to the owner of the van, and I'm spacing his name right now. They went over to
Oh,
his,
Brad Weber.
yeah, they went over to the Weber farm, so they passed right by the crime scene, and I'm going to be a bit indelicate, uh, because I don't know the topography as well, but Libby is about my skin tone, and she was not very covered, and she was nude. I would stand out. Again, not something I'm gonna do for science. Go out in my forested backyard. "Okay, Mr. Mo, can you see me?" Naked hide and seek in the backyard. Maybe date night. We'll see.
Hey, might spice things
How
up a
did
little
Mo
bit.
get poison ivy everywhere? Fun story.
And I did because I didn't think about it until just now, and maybe somebody's discussed it. um, because it was February. There's no leaves on the trees. I wonder, was it a full, and I don't mean to joke by this, but was it a full moon? Because it's like
I'll have to
daylight
go back
out
and look.
here when it is. Like, you know what I mean? So it's Mo and I don't live very far apart from each other, so
Yeah,
it lights up my whole yard when it. I don't even have to when it's a full moon. I don't because I check. Sorry, I spotlight my yard every morning for skunks before I let my dogs out.
hey, you have to I would too if because no skunks, no thank you.
I've
There's
dealt
not
with it
enough
enough.
Febreze in the world.
I have dealt with it enough, and so I don't have to when it's a full moon. I can just go out and look, it's so bright. If that's the case, she would have definitely
Be
stood out even more.
if you have the photo, I think or the sketch, and just a warning you guys, we will be showing a sketch of what the girls look like at the scene of the crime. It's not an easy crime scene. If this is something that you would rather not watch, uh, definitely, take a time, watch a puppy kitten video. I'm not gonna have it up for very long. I just wanna show where the sticks were laid. They weren't you had so much detritus, so much mulch. I mean, on the bottom of
Are
of
you
our
ready?
little forested area, you have pine leaves, you have everything. If this was done in an attempt to conceal the girls, it was the most 10% of a half-assed job I've ever seen.
It was weak. Are you ready?
Yeah, just wanted to let people okay, so Liberty was nude, and she is my skin complexion. I think Abby was in a red or tie-dye.
She was in Libby's
I can't
clothes, and
She
I
was
think
in Libby's clothes, and I'm trying to remember what color because it was a swim sweater, but I don't think we ever played Delphi. My daughter does dive, so
it was tie-dye. I
that's what I generally remember, but as you can see with the way the sticks are placed, this is from the Frank's memo. That is not coverage if you wanna hide a body,
it
and I know that the state put forth that these could have been an undoing. An undoing is typically when, an unaliver would like to give their victim dignity. So this can generally include, covering up if they're nude, not placing them in a provocative sort of pose, closing their eyes, closing their mouths. The girl's eyes were opened. This is not an undoing, in my opinion. Uh, again, unfortunately, it looks like a bunch of redneck hillbilly a-holes decided to make themselves their own Harry Potter stupid club. Got real pissed off because someone close to Liberty and Liberty was nude, Abby was completely clothed. Liberty had blood all over her, Abby did not. They wanted to desecrate Liberty, and there has been strong assertions by the defense that this is because they found out that Liberty's mother was dating someone of a different skin tone. This was what it was all about, and I hate for that to be the end of this. The 2 little girls lost their lives because some redneck stupid buttholes who always again, why is it always, like, power for Caucasians, and it's the one guy with the lazy eye and, like, 3 nipples. It is never, you know, a guy that would look really good in Hugo Boss, okay? Can we be real? It is always the one guy that's like, "Are you sure you have feet and not flippers?"
and somebody asked if these were sticks. So my understanding, like that is a very long branch on that
And
is
some of the
on Libby.
branches had very clean edges. They looked like they had been cut with an electric saw or pre-planned to that length and that specificity in that area. These were not like broken off. Some of them had very clear cuts on them. And for the state to lie about the Purdue professor who said that this clearly looks like it's ritualistic, it could have Norse pagan sort of undertones, but this clearly looks like an intentional, realistic, or ritualistic sort of crime. Zach, nothing's wrong with having 3 nipples, but then you're a witch and, if you float, then that's a problem.
Might help Zach when he's fishing.
That's
He's
how he
fish
catches all the fish.
It's the middle nipple.
It really is. It's a weird form of noodling, which, by the way, who the hell in red as a card-carrying hill chuck, who had this idea? Like, who was like, "You know what? Imma see if I can catch a fish with my fist."
Yeah,
It was a dude.
that was a hold my beer moment, or hey, y'all watch
Yes.
this moment, and then they're like, "Oh, look, I pulled up a fish." I
Yeah,
don't get it.
no.
Who thinks of that?
Um, M169, that is the assumption that the defense is making. I will tell you that the state thinks no such thing. They believe it was part of an undoing, where the killer was trying to cover up the girls. Uh, the problem with that is they're very specific, and they do look like they were pre-cut, and again, you have got Richard Allen has 19 minutes to do this.
Yeah.
It is very odd. It just the pieces don't fit.
Mm-mm.
And I can understand there was a part of me, even as all of this is coming out, that wanted it so much to be Richard Allen. Like, even when the pieces weren't fitting together, weren't, coming clear, and I didn't understand what evidence they were using, I was just like, "Okay, maybe they're, like, waiting for the big surprise, like, they're gonna tell us all the evidence, but they want it to be, in there." And then we get to it, and there's nothing. I want him to be the monster, that's the problem. I get how people are like, "He confessed, he's the monster, we have him," because that is so effing tempting. You don't wanna think that this whoever did this is still around, safe in the comfort that someone else is, taking the heat for now.
Um,
And by the time maybe they realize that the heat is off, they have even less information and less, things to work with. Witnesses die, they move, they forget.
and
Evidence
yeah,
degrades.
and these witnesses, the state, and I get why the defense didn't, but the state called all these eyewitnesses who have also, many of them have changed their stories, but not one time did the state say, "Do you see that person in the courtroom today?" It's a pretty easy answer because you know who the defendant is. You know why you're there. So for the state to not even ask that question, I get why the defense didn't. That's
Yeah,
bothersome to me because that is very just like everyday court, what we see every day. Can you point him out in the courtroom? What's
yeah.
he wearing? And not once, not one time, not one witness.
No, and here's the other thing, you have Jerry Holman, who was kind of one of the co-leads or the second in command, who, in his deposition, said that Richard Allen resembled all of the sketches, that, it was him, that of course it's Richard Allen. I mean, he was deposed, and that's what he said.
That's Richard
Now,
Allen.
when Richard Allen was first arrested, they said he might be part of a group. We're still looking for more people. They have now tried to, craft the case in such a way that it wasn't a bunch of people.
Yes.
Now, I do encourage you, since we're getting close to the end here, I do have the Frank's motion. I read it all. It's about 5 videos. Um, I've covered a lot of the leak and other things. And, if you have questions, I can try to figure them out. I do have, 6 children, so and trying to catch up on this case. So I do have a little bit of obligations, but we kind of wanted to do this stream just to give you a perspective of real everyday people who have questions about this case that aren't, fancy dancy lawyers, but we've lived here. We've lived through this entire investigation. I mean, I know I was glued to like anything they would come out in the case, and we really had nothing, and we still kind of have nothing.
Yeah.
And it's
And
really very odd.
and I think I told you, it's listed in my description. I just a very basic timeline of when the law enforcement came out and said in 2021, we're not giving any more information out.
Yeah.
Why? You know, I get you have to keep some things close to the vest. You have to
Yeah.
keep that thing that only the unaliver would know. Sorry, but you didn't even produce that in your case so far, and you've already the state's rested, and they didn't produce that moment of only the unaliver would know. The white van is
Yeah.
not it.
No, especially when it was I mean, if you go back to the Reddit things, it was highly since about the beginning of the case, it has been highly suggested that Brad Weber's van stopped someone. And Brad Weber has not conducted himself like someone who is he's been very hostile on the stand. He got subpoenaed
On the
uh,
stand.
on the stand. But he reacted in a very odd way when he was questioned, when his timeline of what he was doing was questioned. He became very hostile. He didn't look at the jury. If this is the star witness for the state, this is optically terrible. If he is supposed to be their ace in the hole, him looking shifty and shady as to his timeline. I mean, we have the white I'm not trying to put any don't go after Brad Weber, don't do anything stupid, and you're my chat, I love you, so I don't think you would, but I do have to put out a disclaimer because, well, it's the internet and it's 2024, so don't go after him, don't, like, call 900 pizzas, or ask him if his refrigerator's running.
Although that would be funny, but don't do it.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
he has a white van, he's near the area, it's next to his home, he knows the topography. How is Brad Weber excluded from this? And we haven't even gotten into the phone, sort of telemetry. That's going to be a big part of this, defense's case, from what I've kind of seen. The, expert is going to show that he was not in the area during this timeline. There was also so it's just come out that there was a trail cam very close to the crime scene. Someone was walking around that crime scene that night. Richard Allen was home with his wife. None of this adds up.
Mm-mm. And it makes more
We
sense for somebody with a van. I'm not accusing him in any way,
well,
shape, or
yeah.
form, but it makes more sense for somebody who lives there with a van to be able to transport them to wherever things happened and bring them back later, which, and with help or not, whatever. But that makes a lot more sense to me with the evidence that's there and that we've seen than this guy who's never done anything all of a sudden just does this.
Yeah, and there wasn't I mean, they tried to get his, internet searches, which was like, "Is Jerry Holman a real police officer?" I mean, I've put that in my Google, so it really the dearth of information, the way that I have never seen a more Soviet style faux trial in my life, and they are making it specifically difficult. So there is conjecture among the attorneys that are there that they are making it incrementally harder to sit and watch this trial. You
Mhm.
have to wait for the morning session. Usually it starts around 3. And then, you go into court. Then instead of getting lunch, you have to, because the line starts over again, you have to hustle out and go back to the line. Now, I think, and a lot of conjecture is that Judge Goal is making it to where there will be some sort of altercation or some kind of shenanigans, and then no public will be able to get in. It will
Yep.
only be the accredited media. Now, I will say on that front, Andrea Burkhart has filed an original motion, which goes directly to the state Supreme Court to label everyone as the public because of what Judge Cole wrote in her order. It's only accredited media can look at the displays. And no, in the actual statute, it's anyone in the public should be able to look at any of the evidence that are publicly listed.
Yep.
So it is the amount of tight fisted, ham fisted control gives the optics, whether true or not, that they are hiding something. You are not this opaque unless you are hiding something. And especially with the general zeitgeist of distrust in, you know, government organizations, they played this incredibly wrong.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
I think if they had been truthful, it would look incredibly bad for them. They had no forward movement. You would have thought if at 3 years, you know, Delphi and Unified Command couldn't come with any breakthroughs, they would go crawling back to the FBI. I mean, what's
Yes,
more important, your pride in being the biggest, baddest boss or finding out who killed these kids?
unless they know, and that's why I'm saying, I know it's conspiracy, I get it, I know,
No, it
but it
but it's fertile soil. They have given us nothing. Nothing definitive. Had they found DNA, had they found, you know, a bunch of notebooks like, you know, John Doe from Seven, but the fact is you go to most any house in rural Indiana, you're gonna find a couple Carhartt jackets, a couple of knives, and a couple of, you know, force multipliers. These are not things that you wouldn't find in any other rural Indiana house.
yep, and had he have used the force multiplier to unalive them, nobody would have thought anything about it because it's rural Indiana. There's you hear shots all the time. Like I
Yeah,
in my area that I live, the only time I've been concerned is when they were at 2:30 in the morning and they kept going off. I'm like, what is happening? Is somebody doing like mass farmland bad things to farmers? Like I didn't know. But other than that, if I hear, especially right now, because it's hunting season, it's not hunting
yeah.
season then, but I still would have not have, I don't think anything about
Yeah,
it.
it's kind of ubiquitous here. I mean, we've got people that target practice, that plink, that it is hunting season. I don't know in February if there's any season going on, but it's not something that would have drawn attention.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it
know.
would have maybe drawn being close to the trail. And just to clear up some Hollywood stuff, you guys, even if he used a silencer or a suppressor, it's still loud enough to be a jackhammer. It goes from like a jet engine to a jackhammer. It's not like
No.
that's Hollywood. And I wish we could have suppressors because it's considered rude in Europe to not have a suppression thing on your weapons, but here we have to, you know, ask the ATF and give them more money.
Yes, and reasons. But I know you
And
have to go
yes, I do
get
have
your
to pick up the kiddos. I would recommend I do have an entire playlist. Eyes on Delphi is a great source. They have a lot of different maps and things. I did go over the entire Frank's memo, and I might be doing a long live stream of just going over that again uh, at some point this week. I might. And then my goal is to have the first week ready to murder board and go through all of the witnesses by Friday ish,
Oh.
ish. Possibly. If nothing explodes, which is somewhat unlikely.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Oh,
Thank you,
yeah,
Wolfram.
yes. And, you know, we will try to do more. This is a giant case. It has a lot of rabbit warrens. I mean, we have not even scratched the surface of the whodunit hit list, basically. There is it's a hard case, and it's motivated so many people. People have taken Abby and Libby into their hearts, regardless of what side they're on. We can all agree that we want justice for these girls. We want their spirits to be at peace. We want their family to have as much closure, whatever the hell that means, because it doesn't take away the pain.
Yep.
It doesn't answer the question. Because if the answer is that some people were just mad that Libby's mom was dating another dude, it doesn't make sense either.
Right. Yeah. That's yes.
But I want them to have those answers because I
Right.
can't imagine not, and I can't imagine looking at this case, being in the courtroom, if it were my family member and this is the case this the state had, they better lock my ass up because I am out there bad mouthing every single person at the top of my damn lungs. Like, lock me up, put me away because I will not settle for oh, and don't forget hidden true crime. Yes, sorry. So, I can't imagine what they're thinking. This is what the state has. This is what the state they've been telling us this is an airtight case.
Yeah, and
This is
it's
what they
not.
have.
It's like a tornado.
Yeah, it's just it's so incredibly sad, and this is not the way we wanna treat people. People are innocent until proven guilty. You don't have to like them. I still think
No,
Sarah Boone's a trash bag human, but I wanted her to have a fair trial,
absolutely.
mostly
I say
because
that at the beginning of every trial. I want to be fair, I want to be clean. Just do a
yeah,
clean trial. That's it. It's like, I don't think it's that much to ask.
no, and I don't want my name being co-signed on this for justice. They're representing the state of Indiana, and I don't co-sign this.
Mm-mm.
I don't want as Daryl Brooks would say, "Has the state of Indiana come in?" And most of us do not co-sign this.
There was something that was said, and I think Andrea said something, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," in my mind, I went, "Is that lawful law?"
I I blame Sarah for having a near panic attack when I saw the word future or what futuristic. I read it futuristically and I was like, "No, no." I had to put my book down. I was like, so she's guilty just on that alone. And then Daryl is guilty because now I sometimes say substained. And I'm like, Daryl.
Daryl, get in your fort, Daryl. Shut up.
Yes. Oh, and yes, speaking of tornadoes, Texans be safe. I know crazy weather is going through. I do have to run to get
Yes.
the feral young boys and then fight at with the other one, like or the youngest one, "Today has been boring. I have to do more schoolwork." Yes, you do. I don't want a call from the teacher. You don't want me mad. I don't want a call from the teacher. You're gonna have to do homework.
Yes. So, I don't miss those days, I will tell you. They'll be over before you know it. That's what I always tell everyone.
And I always dearly wanna ask those older women when I was dealing with a toddler meltdown and, like, a newborn and leaking milk in Walmart, and she's like, "You're gonna miss this," and I always wanted to say, "Can I miss it now? Are you going to take them for a minute? Because I wanna just test this out, make sure I'm gonna miss this. Like, give
And
me a
yeah.
good 15 minutes and let me see if I miss."
And you no, you're never gonna miss the tantrums. I don't miss the tantrums. I just, like I have a 4-month-old granddaughter. My son, it's like when she cries, he said, "I don't like, I don't wanna hear babies crying out in public. I don't like when mine cries out in public." I'm like, "Who cares? Just give her to me. I don't
Yeah.
care." People,
I'm ready
when
for the grandma stuff. I'm gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, yay." Do you get the new baby smell?
yep, and then you send them home.
Yes, because the new baby smell is accompanied by the new poo smell, and you're like,
Yes, and it's like, "Here you go.
"Yes,
Time for them to go home." So, all right. Well, thank you
yes,
guys. Thank you, Mo. We will have to do this
you're
again
welcome."
because this has
Yes.
been very interesting. I knew you had so much more information on this than I did. I had no idea you had so much more information on this than I did.
Well,
And I
yeah,
appreciate you
I just
sharing it all.
it was very interesting to do the look at the probable cause affidavit after I had started looking at trials, so I kinda knew what was involved. I'd looked at other ones, and this is so much different. I did a reading of the probable cause affidavit, and I'm surprised that Richard Allen was arrested. It is so weird. And so, again, the defense has pointed out, you're gonna find a Carhartt jacket, knives, and force multipliers in nearly every house in Indiana.
Yeah.
So and they haven't found any digital links. He didn't like they're trying to make the bullet in the keepsake box as some sort of trophy.
Which is so
It
dumb because I can tell you, just as somebody that's moved, if I have every once in a while, for some weird reason, there'll be a spare round in a box rolling around. And then I will just pick it up and I'll put it in the nearest thing. And
thing.
sometimes that's a keepsake box because it's right there. It's little. It's I'll just put it in there and then I'll notice it like years later. I'm like, what is that in there for? I
I
obviously
do that
picked
with
the bank
bobby
to do
pins,
something.
not ammunition, but I've got bobby pins everywhere. There are bobby pins all over the place. But I
Yeah.
am going to go pick up the
Yep.
children. I do have nightly newsy news at 6, so we are doing an earlier time. I do not know if I'm going to be on election night. I've been invited to several streams, and I don't know that I'll be able to find one single story that isn't, just election stuff, and I try to stay, non-ish political
Me
because
too.
I hate both sides. So, there you go.
Yep, me too. And I will be back Wednesday, uh, my normal time at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. I will probably continue talking about this. Also, so I will not do anything tomorrow on election day, but when I see you all on Wednesday, no matter the outcome, just be nice to each other. Just it doesn't just be nice. That's all I'm going to say because
Yes.
that's what's going to get us through no matter what happens. That's what's
Yeah,
going to get us through.
people are still people. I tell my kids all the time, they're like, "Well, what's a Democrat?" And I said, "It's just someone who sees we all see the same problems, we just have different ideas of how we're going to fix them." And then you have crazy people that are on TikTok. I don't know what you call them, but then you have crazy people.
But yeah, I just want everybody just show up. My chat's
Yeah,
great. Your chat's great. We have a great time. And I want that to continue. No matter we've all liked each other so far. So,
yeah.
you know,
You know what? We have so much more in common, and it's the loud, squeaky people that get all the noise, but a lot of us are just humans trying to human and vaguely convinced that we're aliens on this planet. So, be kind to each other, be kind to yourself, but carry a can of bitch fire just in case people, test your boundaries.
all right. Thank you again, Mo. I'm going to end this
You're
and
welcome. Okie dokie.
we will talk later. So,
Okie
oh, I
dokie.
got to make sure that I end this correctly because of this new thing. All right. I'm ready. All right. I'll see you guys later.
Okay.
Thank you again for
Bye.
joining us. See you, Mo.